Oh, we got a busy day right here on If You Don't Like That. We started off with Sean Salisbury. Coming up in 1 hour, we got the Kings Roundtable with Ryan and Sacktown and Jerry Reynolds. Sean, good afternoon, buddy.
How you doing, Grant?
I am doing well. I want to back up to last Thursday. A lot of talk about Dan Campbell, fourth and less than a yard, 40 seconds left, tied game, and you go for it. And I know a lot of people are going, well, they made it and they ran out the clock and they were able to win the game without Green Bay touching the ball. And I say, you know what, that's fine and dandy. But those same decisions cost the Lions a berth in the Super Bowl last year, okay, on 2 4th and shorts against San Francisco. The first one up 24-7, which completely changed the momentum of the game. And the second one also. So, I wanted to get your take on this because I heard Nick Saban over the weekend say, you know what, if you can win the game with your offense, win it.
Yeah, I tend to lean that way too. I 100% understand where you're coming from, but the personality of the head coach, you can't take that out of him, Grant. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to take Steph Curry and turn him into a layup guy when he's a great three-point shooter, and he'll live and die by the three-pointer when he does it. You get my point? And I understand the situation of the game. Now, if it's the Super Bowl this time around to get to it, maybe he does something different and trusts his defense because we know their offense. And I think he trusts his defense now more than ever. And maybe at the time last year. And in this game, to be honest with you, Grant, listen, if he goes 1 for 5, people are crucifying him over what happened in this past game, right? They just are. But since he had success and at the timing of it, now he's a genius and aggressive, right? You know how it works in sports. That's the way it is. But
yeah, of course.
I tend to lean to the side that I don't want to give anybody else an extra opportunity. If Dan, and it sends that psychological message to your team, we're going to basically it's swagger where your chest puffed out saying, you can't stop us and prove it until you can. And then to call hand the ball off on a 4th and still get it. That's a trust in the physicality of those guys up front. So listen, we could go and if I said it's Houston or if I said it was a tweener team, well, the way Burrow's playing, but let's say it's a 5-8 team, Grant, the truth is the coach would be an idiot to go for it. You take points or you punt it away and you trust. But even though their defense is good, the strength of that team, and I think it's the best offense in football. I don't care what the numbers say. If there's and I think the numbers do bear that out. I trust it too, but that's who he is. And you know this, Grant, all the coaches you've covered and players you've covered. Imagine trying to turn an extrovert into an introvert or taking aggressiveness out of a guy. So he's going to live by it, and it's working for him. Now you run into a team, the Chiefs, maybe you say, man, I want to keep it out of Mahomes' hand, but their defense is really good. Let's punt it away and trust our defense because the Chiefs' offense isn't maybe as good as they've been in the past. So I get what you're saying. But I also know I know that feeling, and when you're feeling it and you trust your team, that it comes back to you tenfold. I didn't have a problem with it because in truth, they're in such a great position. I know home field advantage matters to them, but they're in such a great position. They're in position to, if that was to get to the playoffs, you might have seen something different. But they've got a little leeway because they've played so friggin' well. So I'm not going to question Dan until he goes 0 for 5 on it. Then we're going to question why now. Yep. But they're so good offensively, and he believes in his team. And to me, that's the hidden message here. Maybe it's not hidden. Maybe it's about as hidden as a Mike Tyson punch to your face in his prime is I love my team. This is how we do things, and this is exactly how we're going to continue to do it. There is something to be said for that, but you know how it is, Grant. If you have success, we're not going to question it. We're going to call you a hero. If you don't, then you got to deal with the ramifications afterwards.
All right, Haunted Horse with a good one. Talking about the Bills sneaking Josh Allen up in their face. Bad coaching there. Ran out of time at the end of the game without that extra timeout. I don't know if you saw that, but the Rams and the Bills, right? You have 3 timeouts. You need 2 scores. You're on the half-foot line. Quarterback sneak, no, you take a timeout. You need that timeout if you have any chance of getting 2 scores, all right? Because if you score a touchdown there, you have 3 timeouts. You can stop them. You get the ball back. I mean, it didn't make any sense at all. And I see mismanagement of the clock almost every week now in the NFL, and it's baffling to me.
And it's the stuff you can control that drives me crazy. I can't control somebody making a blitz and just being better than me, right? If the edge rusher beats my tackle up the field and gets a sack, shit happens, man. It happens to everybody. But the controllable things, when to use timeout, when to go for it, like we mentioned Dan Campbell for time, when to punt it, when your field goal kicker is in or out of range, all these things that you control. It is baffling to me because it doesn't happen once in a while. Every week in the NFL, there's 2 or 3 incidents where you're saying, Are you aggressive? Are you not aggressive? Or are you just stupid?
Right.
And these can't be that stupid. But the concept, it's like, and yet now we get so many people on the analytics side, yet, well, the analytics say this. Screw the analytics. I got to go with what's best for my team and how I'm feeling it. Analytics,
Yep.
you got to be able to balance them. And if some card tells me that I'm supposed to go for it here, you got to understand the situation of the game. Every analytic and every card is not the same. It also depends on who you're playing. I thought it was a dumb call, and here's why. And I think Collinsworth beat it up, right? Didn't he?
Yeah.
Collinsworth? Yeah. You've got a guy who's 6 responsible touchdowns, 3 rushing and 3 throwing. You need the timeouts. On the edge, I got a better chance in allowing him to use his big body on a run-pass option or RP. Get on the edge. He's big enough to run through. On the quarterback sneak, you're somewhat limited. And I know the Eagles execute that, but they're not the Eagles. They're whatever they do it to – and even then, I got to preserve that timeout because if you give them another chance, they're more than likely going to go down with it and probably win the game the way he's played this year. So, and it's not even McDermott. I saw in there, McDermott taking some flack. If it's McDermott, then McDermott, if Joe Brady said, hey, here's what we're going to do, and McDermott said, yeah, do that. I know when I was playing with Denny Green would go up to Brian Billick in situations like that or what he wanted. He never told him what play to run. He'd say, give me your best run, which was a very loud message, said, if you throw the ball here, you're in trouble with me. If he said, give me your best throw, and you ran it, then it would piss. So when he said that, it wasn't often, but in those situations. So I was sitting there thinking, you get him a break contain. A similar, I always go back to the Russ Wilson Super Bowl with Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
What are you doing not getting him on the edge and inside where balls can get tipped? Get him where he can get to the pylon, get out of bounds. You still preserve time, and I can go for it on the next down. So while it wasn't the Super Bowl, you're battling for home field advantage, and it was critical for them because you want to go to Buffalo in January. I don't, and that game's a massive for them. So if it was McDermott that had said, yeah, do it, or if Brady's he's got full carte blanche to call what he wants, then Joe Brady, I understand Josh Allen, but I'd like the big fella at 240 on the edge with more than one option with the MVP, the way he's playing. Yeah, you have to save that time out to give yourself a chance. It was a unique situation and one that you have to be aware of that.
Speaking of being aware, I'm watching Micah Parsons the other night and how he lines up and the effect that he has on a defense. It's incredible to me. I want to look back when you played, because you played against some amazing defensive players, Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor. So you come out of the huddle, and let's say it's a pass play, and you are on top of everything else trying to figure out the defense, the reads. But when you went up against a Reggie White, did that change the way you were thinking in the pocket? Did that change your pocket presence? Like, how did you deal with great players like a Reggie White or a Lawrence Taylor?
Grant, I think that question is not get asked enough in like national media and just getting to the brass tacks of how you do it. You're on to something. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't just change how I feel. It has an impact the whole week. When you go in to prepare for Micah Parsons, when we prepared in a game against Lawrence Taylor, when you prepared in a game against Reggie White, which we had to do both, when we played against Philadelphia's overall defense and Reggie's there and Jerome Brown, and when you played against Taylor and Gary Reasons and Carl Banks were there, that even if you doubled one, the other guy was capable of beating your brains in, right? So you went up. It's like when you played us in Minnesota. Think about this now, Grant, just real quick. John Randall, Hall of Famer. Henry Thomas inside should be considered for the Hall of Fame. Keith Millard, Defensive Player of the Year. Chris Dolman, Hall of Famer. They were all on the same line.
John Randall, too. John Randall was incredible.
So if you wanted to fly the line to Keith Millard, who was at one point the Defensive Player of the Year, and you were going to single Thomas, Dolman, and Randall, guess what? You were fucked. Pardon my French. You were screwed, right? So when we did that, and think about our offensive line, even with our line, we had Gary Zimmerman, Hall of Fame left tackle, and Randall McDaniel, Hall of Fame left guard. Grant, those were all those guys, those 6 I just named, are on the same team. Oh, and by the way, Chris Carter was in the slot, and Anthony. I mean, it must have been the quarterback's fault why we didn't win a Super Bowl, right? At the time. So and we were so loaded. Yeah. But that impacted them every week. So when we play Reggie White or when we play Lawrence Taylor, the whole week of practice, we worked on no matter where he lines up. If the quarterback's in the gun, we're sliding the line, which means we are adjusting the line to that guy. Even with Gary Zimmerman, who can handle anybody, at times you didn't, and Zim, who was all into it, you didn't want to put him on an island, and Zim dominated everybody. And so even with those guys, even when you got a Hall of Famer blocking him, it's still slide the line. So he zoned it up. He takes an inside charge. Hell, who doesn't trust Gary Zimmerman or Randall McDaniel blocking those guys? But it's the one play that they do something different. And we had the thing, we did not want to run away from Lawrence Taylor. We wanted to run to him because he chased everything down. He ran like a running back. Exactly. So we wanted to get it. And Richard Dent was the same way. Get at their legs, piss them off. It was funny, Grant. We play Chicago. And Richard Dent, who's a Hall of Famer and one of the greatest dudes on the planet.
Yep.
You go into a game early with that Bears defense, and the all week long we talk about whatever you do, just don't cut Richard Dent early. Because Richard was one of those guys sometimes come in a little casual. And then early in the game, inevitably a back or somebody cut him. And then Richard's eyes would be like, you cut me. Yeah. And then he'd go haywire. It's like, dude, we said don't cut him. Don't awake the sleeping giant. So when you play those guys, you slide the line to them when you're zone blocking, you get a little chip or you double with the tight end. And it changed the whole week of practice because we had to practice. Okay, Mike is right. No, Lawrence Taylor's there. Slide the line left. So and now they're moving guys around. So when you play Parsons or when you play TJ Watt, your entire practice week, their names are mentioned as much as your own team, because if I'm getting beat, TJ Watt can't beat me. I cannot let that happen. And so I'm always fascinated when they do. And you're like, why are you blocking a tight end with TJ Watt? You can't do it. So it was the same. So it was, and then as a quarterback, what it is, you're going into the week and it's like, Sean or Wade or Rich Gannon, the ball got to come out just a tad quicker because Reggie White's throwing people into the fourth row and Lawrence Taylor's faster than the running backs. So let's be cognizant of our game plan of how we do it. So like a great offensive player, Rod Woodson was another one. Even though he was a secondary guy, a great blitzer, we knew where Rod Woodson lined up every friggin' snap. And our game plan dictated how we did that and how you attacked it. So, yes, that goes on. And even on a bad defense, you're like, Parsons can't beat me. Number 11 ain't taking over this game. And yet sometimes those guys are so good, they still do. So, yeah, you piss yourself during the week. And then I'm not the guy who has to block him. So imagine what they go through and you got to block him 70 snaps a game. Nah, man. I don't want that.
Not only that, when you played back then, you guys could get killed. Now the quarterback is still somewhat protected. But I was blown away. There was one key play in the fourth quarter after the punt issue with the Cowboys, and the Bengals get the ball. And Parsons came on a blitz untouched. And Burrow knew he was going to get hit hard, and he made the pass right over the middle for a crucial first down. And Parsons hit him, but it wasn't the way you would have been hit by Lawrence Taylor or Reggie White back when you played.
Yeah, and Burrow understanding the sense of it. Boy, has that guy played great this year. It's friggin' unbelievable.
It's been tremendous.
Funny story, Greg, we dropped back in times we played. Not saying these guys couldn't have played then, but the rules were just different. And it was a lot more difficult because the hits you'd take, you'd get the referee saying, oh, man, hey, lay off him after you took a chin to a helmet, the crown of the helmet to the chin.
Yep.
I can remember Jim Tunney, the great Jim Tunney. You know him, the great referee, and I love Jim. And Dick Hantack. They were great communicators. And you could hear them sometimes when you're in the middle of your drop back, Dick Hantack or Tunney say, all right, hey, leave him alone. And you're about ready to throw it, right? Like you would with the kid. Hey, throw it. And so there was times I remember Jim Tunney, and Jim had a great personality. You get hit, and you thought it's late, and your head's in the ground, and you're picking up dirt off the thing, and Sean, you okay? And he'd say, okay, hey, lay off. And he'd help you up and hand you, whatever was knocked around. He'd fish you. But there was no flag, right? It's like, Jim, I love you to death. Thanks for the communication. Call it on that son of a bitch, man. He just hit me after 2.5 steps. Yeah. And I wasn't going to beat you with my feet. So if you didn't have a steel chin, you were hosed. But, yeah, it was just different, man. And you could take 2.5 steps and put the crown of your helmet in the guy's sternum. And it wasn't you're an unprotected player. It was you're a quarterback, you dumbass, and you're going to take every hit you want to. So it does change the course of a game, and you hope you have enough players to not let those great players take over. Real quick, one of the answers, would I play Michael Penix, Grant? I think it's unfair to both. Cousins is, but the truth is, I'm not talking about the feelings. I don't know if Penix gives them the best chance to win just yet, but they drafted him for a reason. And remember, I think you and I may have talked about it, but I know I have on my show, that when you draft a guy in the top 10 picks and you're $100 million plus quarterback, $180 million plus struggles, and what is that, 8 picks in the last 4 games, and they haven't won any of them?
Exactly.
And you've got a guy over there, the temptation in that meeting room with the coaches is it time? If they were out of the playoff hunt, you may say absolutely. I think you're still going to be patient. They're going to let Cousins, I think, play it out a little bit more. But I'm going to tell you, one more loss and 2 more picks.
Oh, boy.
Kirk Cousins may be handed Michael Penix Gatorade. I think the money has something to do with it now. Cousins has shown that he's been a really good regular season quarterback. But the effect now is starting to affect, and you owe it to the 53 other cats on the team to say,
Amen.
Who gives us the best chance to win? If Michael Penix does that, then you've got to set Cousins regardless of the money you're paying him if that happens.
It looks like Bill Belichick's going to be the new head coach at North Carolina. Your thoughts?
You think he went in prepared with like a 400-page? I mean, I've talked to coaches, or anytime you go and say, okay, give me your when they bring you in, whether it's the athletic director or whoever, give me your presentation on the board. Get up there and teach me how we running this program, because it's no longer how we coach in football. How are we running? How are we running North Carolina football? And I can assure you, if nothing else, there was not one stone unturned. Now, in the thing we are now, you people are going to say, well, can he handle the younger generation? He handled him just fine because he coached 22-year-olds in the 60s. Okay, so he'll be fine. The whole thing is, who will he hire? I'm not worried about Belichick. Listen, he's the greatest coach we've ever had, and the numbers prove it if we're going by the numbers. And it hasn't had college success. I think you can have more success going from the NFL to college than the other way around if you're Bill Belichick. I do. But the problem is now that you are coaching pros because of NIL and collective, it's not going to be whether Belichick can recruit. It's not going to be whether he can get buy-in for him, because there's going to be the parents that are going to be intrigued. It's Bill Belichick. You got a chance to go to the NFL. It's going to be the staff he hires, who he hires, the NIL and the collective. I can't imagine that Bill Belichick there's money at North Carolina, Grant. You know this.
Oh, yes.
There's plenty of money. I can't imagine Bill took that job saying, well, we're going to be only half in on NIL. I would imagine Bill said because his buddy Nick Saban walked away for the reason why he didn't want to deal with it, which is the irony of this. So if they're committed collective in NIL, the football stuff I ain't worried about. He will coach them up. I think the biggest deal is who's he hiring? Who's the 35-year-old or 50-year-old quarterback coach? Who's his coordinator with that? Who's his deep? What are they doing? Because really, those guys spend more time than the head coach. Hell, Mac Brown's older, and they won there when Mac first got to North Carolina.
Amen.
So I'm not worried about the age. That's anybody who says that's bullshit. And anybody who wants to say, well, can he connect? Well, he's dating a 20-some-year-old or a 30-year-old, so he understands. And I'm not saying that's recruiting, but Bill is not stupid. And you may have learned a lot saying, okay, I'm going to coach these guys. Listen, he learned a lot from Cleveland.
Yep.
To be the New England head coach, and he'll learn a lot from, okay, you got to deal a little different. But Belichick's one of the unique ones. He doesn't have to go in and kiss the parent's ass. He doesn't have to. They got to kiss his. It's Bill Belichick. But the underrated part is, who are you hiring to go recruit when you can't, to go get those guys, and your staff? Belichick's Belichick. He's going to get players. The question is, who are the guys you're hiring, and what's that staff going to look like?
One of the things I've always admired about you, you are not afraid to voice your opinion. And I loved your tweet on X in reference to Caitlin Clark. I was blown away. I just couldn't believe it. I'm not saying about your tweet. I'm talking about Caitlin Clark. I mean, come on, really?
I don't get it, Grant. I don't know. She does. You know what? She doesn't need to apologize. Even if in the way the article was written, it wasn't I'm sorry. It was, having to whether it's pander to the people who want to question. Listen, the people who, when with the pandering, she is completely, listen, there's always been great players, African-American, white, it doesn't play. Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird happen to be white, African-Americans. It doesn't, there have been great players in the WNBA for a long time, but she heightened the awareness. She just did. We've never had ratings or people in the stands. And Caitlin Clark may have been the engine, but you also have to have everything else in an automobile to get it going. And now what she's done is realize that there's 30 great players in the league. She was just a great help to get people to, I got to watch them play. She didn't need to apologize for that. Matter of fact, she should stand up and thumbs up. Take the award. You earned it. Make sure you continue to market this and do your thing. And you continue to play well and just do you. We'll continue to pay attention, as we should, to the great players in this league, whether they're white, black, or anywhere else they come from. But she doesn't need, the privilege is, you were born white. That's not, in some cases, in certain parts of life, there's been privilege for some. We've seen that's been well documented. But when it comes to basketball and your competition, you don't have to apologize for how you were born. You sure as hell don't have to apologize for your talent because you put the time in. And you don't have to apologize for where the WNBA is because the heightened awareness is getting people more endorsements, more awareness, more ratings, more TV coverage. So I was just shocked that she felt like she had to pander or apologize for something. She did nothing wrong. And I just don't get it because the WNBA, I'm not even saying the players, the WNBA as a whole and investors that own those teams, Caitlin Clark turned the entire thing around. But in the process, we've seen great players that are just as good as her in other facets of the game. We see them all over. They got great players. People that didn't watch weren't aware. I was just shocked that she felt the need to, there's privilege in different parts of life for a lot of different walks of life.
Of course there are.
But basketball, she earned it by being a great player. 3 years ago, nobody knew who Caitlin Clark was.
Great point.
You know what I'm saying? 2 years ago, we started to recognize. A year and a half ago, we said, this woman's off the charts. And if she was that overly privileged, wouldn't she have made the Olympic team?
Great point.
So to me I still am always baffled by people, the skin color. And I know racism exists in all walks of life. I have a hard time in basketball or in team sports, any sport. I can't even fathom sitting in the locker room next to my buddy thinking that racism exists. And I'm sure it does. Maybe that's naive, but she has brought more attention and more love and more eyes and ears and bandwidth to the game. So I don't think she deserved athlete of the year, and she sure as hell doesn't need to apologize. People need to just keep riding this thing and keep playing well, and we'll recognize the Angel Reeses or the Kelsey, all the people who deserve more pub. Yep. And her players were created. I
don't think she did herself any favors. I think there are a lot of people that are going to be turned off by this.
On reading tweets and stuff, and like I said, you don't even have to pander to the people that are going to go away because you said it. What you just needed to do is thank you. What an honor it is. I'm grateful I play around some great players of all colors and religions and walks of life. And now you see the WNBA and what it's for. The pub will continue to come if all these players play good, regardless of their skin color. And she just happens to be a white player who's Larry Bird for women's basketball. That's exactly who she is. And no, Magic Johnson wasn't mad at Larry Bird. Larry Bird didn't apologize for being white. Larry Bird didn't apologize for he and Magic and then Jordan. They changed how we were feeling. The NBA was on tape delay.
That's right.
For a while there, if you remember.
Sure, of course.
Now so Caitlin Clark's been great. She owes nobody an apology. And there's no better place for the melting pot of all different races and religions than pro sports. There just isn't. So if somebody outside of pro sports looks at it as racist or privileged, that's a them problem. This is a great thing that the NBA has done and Caitlin Clark's done. Keep riding that pony. And Grant, can I just give you a 30-second rant about one thing?
You can give me a 5-hour rant if you want. Go ahead.
I'm just going to switch gears here for 1 second. Back to this NIL stuff. I think what we need to do, and the transfer portal, everybody's not transferring because they're going to get money. They're transferring because they don't want to compete or they're getting money. It just depends. We seem to think that the 40th guy on a roster is transferring and getting $2 million. He's not. But a lot of guys are getting paid. It is a pro sport now. So if the kid can leave when he wants and the coach can leave when they want, and coach can get a buyout and get his, and you can be Barry Odom and love UNLV and the next day telling Purdue what a great group they have. If you can do that, the coaches have been doing it forever. The players deserve to get paid. All those things are obvious. But since it's a pro sport, you know what I'm going to suggest? If you can get up and walk away at any time you want and go get more money, and it's a free agency on a regular basis without you being free and you signed a scholarship, we should, number one, be able to cut players and trade them in college.
Wow.
You should be able to call, if you're the University of Oregon and a guy wants to transfer or a guy doesn't get playing time and he's disgruntled, I should be able to call up Oregon State and say, we like your freshman that's a backup. You want for a prospect. This guy was a 5-star recruit playing like a 3-star for us. We'd like to trade him for your guy. Why not? And you should be able to cut them on the spot where they lose their scholarship, because if they can go and get a scholarship and get money, cut them on the spot. Listen, well, they're 18. Well, they're getting paid. So they want to be treated like grown-ass men and pros. You should be able to cut them. And lastly, put an NIL and a collective salary cap. Now the big boys, now you even it. You should get a capologist. We got general manager. Andrew Luck's the general manager at Stanford. Now, we got capologists. Why wouldn't we say, hey, man, we can't take that guy on NIL. We only got $500,000 left. He wants 750. We're going to have to cut a guy to bring. If this is where we're going,
Yeah.
and you want it, get it 100%. Because I know in pro sports, if your ass isn't playing well, you're getting cut, or you're getting traded, or you're getting moved on to somewhere else. And if you're fortunate to be a free agent, what do? They leave for more money. Why
I
not?
would have loved to have seen how they divvied up the money when you were at USC, because you had a Hall of Famers all over the damn place. That would have been interesting.
You're damn right. And if they didn't have a salary cap and NIL was as real as it is now,
oh my God.
Guys, well, we got paid a lot of money. But hell, I know we had a guy named Steven Webster who was our 4th running back. And every time in spring practice, Webb would go out there and play, and they couldn't tackle his ass. They couldn't tackle him. At times, I went up to him, put my arm around, and say, "Webb, I know we got all these great Heisman Trophy winners, and he was a great kid, but he was so good." And I said, "Webb, are you sure you don't want to go transfer and start and rush for 1,500 yards at somebody? Just go do it against us." And he was a great guy. A guy like that goes and becomes a star somewhere else. That's the part of the transfer portal I get. But with all that money. If you're gonna, it would have been nice to be an NIL at SC. It'd have been nice. But it's a time. I would have loved it that would have been a good thing. Hell, I'd had to take a pay cut to go to the NFL, and that would have been awesome. Times change, but you see what I'm saying, Grant? If we're going to ask to be treated like grown men and transfer when we want, then you got to play by grown men rules, right?
I love it. You would have to take a pay cut to go to the NFL. That is a classic. Oh, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Appreciate you too, brother. Thank you for letting me get a lot of things off my chest. And I'm happy as a pig in shit. So here we go. Let's go.
I love you.
Appreciate it. I ain't apologizing for how stupid I am either, whether you like it or not. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a great one.
Oh my God. Oh, he is the best. My favorite segment of the week. He is the absolute best. Oh my God. Oh, what a freaking classic that is. Just an absolute classic. Hey, I want to tell you about New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. They're available around the clock 24/7 for your plumbing needs and repairs. Call that number on your screen or go to sackserviceplumbing.com. New Works Plumbing, they're awesome. They have a fix for you. Again, sackserviceplumbing.com. And I want to tell you about the newest residential community in Colusa. Just go to ColusaSunrise.com. You get all the information you need on Sunrise Landing from Blazona Development. Remember, 6 models to choose from. No Mellorews, no homeowners. Very, very good location adjacent to the Colusa Golf and Country Club. Good access to the major arteries, I-5, Highway 20, Highway 45. It's all there for you if you go to ColusaSunrise.com, and you can check out Sunrise Landing. Again, ColusaSunrise.com. Anyone better than Sean Salisbury? Oh, my God. What an absolute classic he is. Just an absolute classic. Riley says it's always about race today. Amen to that. Amen to that. I wonder how much this will affect viewership next season. It will affect it, but not, I don't think to that magnitude, but I do think there are people that are like, I'm done. I really do. But we'll see. We'll see. Don't forget, we got Jerry Reynolds and Ryan in Sacktown coming up here in 30 minutes from now. Looking forward to that. We will have our Kings Roundtable. We'll talk NBA. That's coming up in about 30 minutes as the Kings are making their way to New Orleans to take on the Pelicans for the first time this year. Then a couple of days off, and they will host Denver before playing the LA Lakers on back-to-back games. Appreciate you being with us. Appreciate Sean Salisbury so much. Classic. Just classic interview. He's the best. Love the guy. All right. Appreciate you. See you in 30 minutes right here on If You Don't Like That. Bye-bye for now.